A pretty light agenda for tonight. I know that 365 talking about it was on here. I talked to Charles. That's something that I think that we're going to wait on for the next meeting. So let's scratch that off. We know we won't be dealing with that tonight. That leaves us with the two presentations. It's the NEPA presentation that Tracy Williams gave us. As a reminder, that one was really just for information only. That was to educate us on the NEPA process. And then Amy brought the really cute stuff. That's awesome. And then the rest of it's going to be 235F, and we're going to talk about that presentation and the update and progress along with that. So let's do the Q&A first for NEPA. And I'm going to ask the board, do you have any questions for Tracy about the NEPA process, trying to understand it, making sure that we have a good handle on how that works? Any questions about NEPA for Tracy? Really? Well, we all feel like we have a good handle on the process. We understand how it works.
James, this is Charles.
Hey,
I have one comment.
Okay.
I'm not sure that at some point in time we'd like to have a formal presentation on that besides just the slides that we saw. It's hard to get a handle on just looking at the slides. I think a brief presentation and a live meeting would probably be helpful on that. If that could be arranged, I don't know if that can be done, but I think it would be something worthwhile to think about.
You think it's information that'd be easier to digest, like an in-person workshop, perhaps?
I do.
All right, we'll make a note.
There are some changes in that came out. First changes, I think Tracy said it was first changes in like 40 years. I'm somewhat familiar with the process, but I think it might be helpful, if nothing else at a committee meeting, just to be face to face and sit down and look at it one-on-one and then go from there. Just a suggestion.
I can appreciate that. And that's something that we can take a note on and see if that's something that we really need to do. Are there any other questions or comments about NEPA for Tracy?
This is Greg. I've got a question real quick.
Go for it.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I noticed you mentioned the executive order. I think it was 1389. Can you talk a little bit more, just very broadly? Did that complicate things for you? Did it make things easier? Did it speed things up? Did it slow things down? Do you think Biden is going to overturn it when he comes in? Kind of what's your read on all that?
Okay, well, hey, this is Tracy Williams. I appreciate the question. The executive order, for years and years and years, just some background for folks who don't understand it or haven't had an appreciation for the NEPA process. It's always been that, we study and we study and we study, and it seems like it takes forever to finalize an analysis, whether it's an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement. Due in large part, the complications of the issues and looking at the alternatives and things of that nature. But the order actually was intended to help speed up the NEPA process, to make it more coordinated among federal agencies, particularly when you have a number of federal agencies that are involved in a large project. The genesis of the executive order was actually looking at major infrastructure projects like roads and highways that involve multiple agencies. And so agencies wouldn't come out with their own separate decision documents. There was the decision that you would do one analysis, you would do one decision document, all the agencies would agree upon that. So to translating that into NEPA, what happened is they shortened timelines. They actually promulgated timelines and document limits in the regulations. For an EIS, it's 2 years. An environmental impact statement, it would be 2 years. For an environmental assessment, it would be 1 year. And if an agency or a proponent had to go beyond those timelines, you would actually have to go to a senior agency official who's designated in every federal agency. You would have to go to that federal agency official beforehand to request an exemption, an extension to that timeline. As also along with the page limits, it also sets page limits to the document. For environmental assessments, that was 75 pages. For environmental impact statements is 150 up to 300 pages. Particularly if it's a complicated document, it will be 300 pages. Now that is regarding the body of the document, not looking at things like appendices and those sorts of things don't count in the page limit. But the base document would only be up to 300 pages for an EIS, and for environmental assessment, 75 pages. So it's only was to make the process also more transparent. A lot of the case studies and case law was promulgated into the regulation, clarifying some of the terminologies and concepts of NEPA. So it honestly was intended to make it more transparent, give the public more input, earlier input into the process, and streamline it a lot. With that being said, as far as the future of NEPA, I don't know, because we just passed this regulation this year. CEQ just passed the regulation this year. And agencies have a year to incorporate those changes into their own regulations and procedures. So it's going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting to see how it works out, because decisions or documents or actions that are already in place prior to the regulations being promulgated, they're not affected by the new regulations. It's only those things that get started since the passage of the new regulations. So I don't think we have anything on the horizon. We being EM at SRS has anything on the horizon that's going to be immediately impacted, because things that we have were started prior to the regulations being implemented. So, but I do appreciate that question. It's going to be interesting. We've been having a lot of discussions, the sites as well as with headquarters, on, how we're going to revise our procedures and regulations. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
This is Greg again. Thanks for that. Just to get an idea of scope real quick. So if the new limit is 150 pages for an EIS, what were EISs typically running?
Oh, you would be surprised. I mean, we talk about hundreds of pages in the past. It could be 500-600 page documents.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
That's not including the appendices and things of that nature. That was just a base document. Could be that large, that voluminous.
Right. Thank you.
Hey, James, this is Narendra. Let me tell you, Greg, that though the EA may be 75 pages, but it can still have about 100, 200, 300 pages appendices. And same is with EIS. Is it true what I said?
Oh yeah, that's true, correct. The appendices and things of that nature don't count in the page count. So you're right. An EA could be several hundred pages too, depending on the appendices and things of that nature. But one of the things they encourage in the regulations is also, where possible, to incorporate things by reference, so you don't have to include the actual document. You could just reference it and things of those nature to shorten the volume of the document as well.
Okay. Any other questions, comments for Tracy?
Hey, James.
Yes.
This is Dan Kaminsky.
Hey, Dan.
I only had one question with regards to the presentation, and that was, do those documents, because they are quite lengthy, does it include any sort of executive summary in the documents?
Typically for EISs, there will be an executive summary, like a summary of the actual EIS, as well as an executive summary in the document. Also for typically usually for EAs, environmental assessments, if they're relatively lengthy, there would be like an executive summary as well.
Okay, thank you.
What's next, folks? Anything else? Going once, going twice. Tracy, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. We're all very glad that you were able to take the time and give the presentation and make time tonight. I know you're very busy. Thank you. So up next, let's move over to 235F. We have both Bert and Jeff here with us, and they've brought a whole host of other folks so that if they need to phone a friend, we've got everybody here for it. So let's open up the floor. Like I said before, we did not get any questions in advance for this one either. So who wants to start it off? Nobody? We all understood it perfectly. We got it?
James, this is Dan again.
Yeah, go for it, Dan.
Hey, I understood the presentation very well, so it was great to see the progress and the information. The one question I did have jotted down was, could you remind me again of what the scheduled time frame to get that facility dispositioned or decommissioned, I believe is what we're calling it now?
All right. So something about time frame.
This is Bert Craps. So where we are with the project is we're doing deactivation. And deactivation right now is scheduled to be completed in 2020 FY23. And at that point, it would be ready for decommissioning. Of course, as you understand, the federal budget cycle is an annual process. So we're supporting the recommendation to have it ready for decommissioning, and it can meet I think y'all had in there the 2026 timeframe. So we're tracking toward that, but I can't speak specifically with unknowns with the budget and out years on how that will actually come to be.
Perfect. Thank you. James, I just had one other comment with regards to the online content.
Okay.
And so the NEPA presentation was very good and concise, but the trouble I personally had, I don't know if anyone else could vouch for that, the slides were only shown a very short period of time and you could not see them behind the presenter on the wall. So in future, if you could flip that where we see the pages more, I mean, obviously we'd love to look at the beautiful people, but we also need to see the details of what they're talking about.
Well, let's hang on after the meeting and let's talk about that a little bit more. And I'll get everybody's feedback on that. Because
the second one was good, but you couldn't see the detail when they were referencing some of the pictures. So
right.
just kind of logistic feedback.
Yeah.
While I'm thinking of it.
No, I appreciate it. And I want to talk some more about it because I got a feeling we're probably going to have to open up 2021 like this. So okay. Let's get it in. And today will be a good night to talk about it. We'll just do an adjournment and everybody just stay on the line that wants to give us feedback on that. Questions about 235F though. Let's switch back over to that. Any questions from the board?
This is Greg again. I'll go ahead since nobody else is jumping in. So thank you guys for the presentation. We mentioned in terms of scheduling, deactivation 2023, decommissioning 2026, budget concerns, all that sort of stuff. So short of budgetary issues, what is the probability of hitting the 2023 and 2026 deadlines?
Bert or Jeff?
Hey, Greg, this is Bert. Right now, we got a new administration coming on board. For me to go figure out where our funding priorities will be is hard to guess, but I will tell you that we got a good bit of money going into the project this year. And if we continue to have level funding at the site, I feel like that we'll get through deactivation. Again, I think decommissioning is going to be a bigger budget, of course, because it's going to cost more to decommission than it is to do the deactivation. Mm-hmm. So that's about all I can speak to that, Greg.
And this
Are
is
you, thank you for that. I understand. Are you optimistic about it? Are you pessimistic? How are you, how do you feel?
I feel good about it right now. I mean, the administration coming in's talked about, infrastructure and stimulus funding in Savannah River in the past. We had this Recovery Act, you remember, a while back. So right now I feel optimistic, but still, I mean, I'd be in a different job right now if I could predict the future.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So
Greg, this is Mike Michelanis. Just to extend Bert's remarks a little bit, we're pretty optimistic about the 2023 date. I mean, obviously, it depends upon, we're in a continuing resolution now. We don't know what kind of budget might come out of Congress this year and the following year. But even if things land butter side down, we've been working hard to get the money identified on how we would make the modifications to go cold and dark in that facility and put it in what we've called the deactivated state. Talking to the 2026 date, though, I'm not as optimistic about that date. Not that Congress won't give us the money in 2026, but rather the decommissioning of that facility. The site's current approach is to do area closure. So we'll get individual facilities within an area ready to decommission, but the overall site plan is to close areas of the site all at one time, because it's more efficient to get the funding from Congress to do large areas rather than individual facility decommissioning. So we're going to get the regulatory basis for what the decommissioning would look like. We're going to put it in a deactivated state. That should be in the 2023, maybe slip a year if things land butter side down, but we're pretty optimistic about the 23 date. But the decommissioning probably would be along what the site plans are, which is around 2030 for the actual filling it up with grout, if that's the preferred alternative. And that's what our preferred alternative is. But if that's what we get back from the regulators, that would probably be happening in the next decade.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
All right, who's next? Anybody have any other lingering questions from the presentation? All right. Well, that was fast. We just did that in record time. Are y'all sure? Because once we hang up, this is going to be it. Okay. Bert, Jeff, thank y'all very much. Just like with Tracy, we appreciate y'all taking the time. We know that you're very busy. We appreciate you able to be on tonight and take the time to record. Thank you. We really do appreciate it.
you're welcome. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you.
So, moving on, before we end things for tonight, I just want to verify with Charles our conversation that we had earlier. We are just going to hold off on discussing 365 for now. There's no real point in doing it tonight, correct?
That's my feelings. I'd like to table it until we can go to a face-to-face meeting. And we had some additional questions about that, and we'd like to talk to Maxine too.
Got it. We'll hold on to that until we can tackle it later. All right. So with that, do we have any other pressing business? Anything that wasn't on the agenda that we need to talk about before we adjourn for tonight?